So the question is, explain the constitutional provisions related to the appointment powers and functions of the CAC. This is from GS paper 2, Indian polity point of view, and we have to write the answer within 250 words. Now, Constitution of India provides for an independent office of the CAC, that is Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Comptroller and Auditor General of India in the chapter 5 under part 5. So CAC to kuntu chapter ase, 5th chapter aru kuntu partor 5th partor, ঠিক আছে? Now the CAC is mentioned in the Constitution of India under Article 148 to 151. So egita important kuntu article ase boli kole ami article 148 or 151 মানে including its definition up to the powers and different other constitutional provisions related to CAG are found in the article 148 to 151. Now he is the head of the Indian Audit and Accounts Department. He is the guardian of the public powers and controls the entire financial system of the country at both center and state level. We all know that this CAG, Comptroller and Auditor General of India, is popularly known as guardian of the public purse, right? And he actually he's the head of the Indian Audit and Accounts Department, and he actually control both central and state level financial system of the country. His duty is to uphold the Constitution of India and the laws of Parliament in the field of financial administration. Now, powers CAC derives its audit mandate from different sources like Constitution, we just got Article 148 to 151, then Comptroller and Auditor General's Duties, Powers, Conditions of Service Act 1971. So, আৰু এটা Act আছে, সেইটো হৈছে Comptroller and Auditor General's Duties, Powers and Conditions of Service Act 1971. Important judgment, Instruction of Government of India, Regulations on Audit and Account 2007. He audits the account related to all expenditure from Consolidated Fund of India and Consolidated Fund of each state and union territory respectively. Means what actually we mean to say that he's not only auditing the expenditure related to Central India, but he's also auditing state and union territories consolidated funds expenditure also. Okay, then he audits all expenditure from the contingency fund of India, the public account of India, as well as contingency fund and public account of each state. তো ইয়াত কি হৈছে আপোনালোকে কি দেখা পাইছে? ইয়াত এইটো দেখা পাইছে যে এজন কেগে চেন্ট্ৰেল লেভেল আৰু ষ্টেট লেভেল বোথ লেভেলত নিজৰ পাৱাৰটো পাইছে, নিজৰ ৱৰ্কিং যিখিনি মানে হেৰি আছে, what we can say extend paise দুইখন state aru country as a whole দুইটাতে paise, right? He audits all trading, manufacturing, profit and loss accounts, balance sheets and other subsidiary accounts kept by any department of the central government and the state government. Then he audits receipts and expenditures of all bodies and authorities substantially financed from the central and state revenues, government companies and other corporations and bodies when so required by the related laws. Then function, we already got that he audit all the transaction of central and state governments related to debt, shrinking funds, deposit, advances, suspend accounts, and remittance business. He audits the account of any other authority when requested by the president or governor, as for example, local bodies. Suppose president and governor request him for another or means audit of other accounts like local bodies account, then he will also do that. So he advises the president with regard to the prescription of the form in which the accounts of the center and state shall be kept. He submits his audit reports relating to the accounts of the center to the president, who shall in turn place them before the houses of the parliament. So কেগে প্ৰথমতে অডিট ৰিপৰ্ট কাক সাবমিট কৰে প্ৰেসিডেন্টে কৰে আৰু প্ৰেসিডেন্টে সেই ৰিপৰ্টটো পাৰ্লিয়ামেন্টত সাবমিট কৰে he submits his audit reports relating to the accounts of state to governor and then governor in will submit it or will place them in front of the state legislature যেনেকে central levelত তোমাৰ প্ৰেসিডেন্টৰ সন্মুখত কৰে তেনেকে ষ্টেট লেভেলত গভৰ্ণৰ সন্মুখত কৰে আৰু গভৰ্ণৰে ষ্টেট লেজিসলেচাৰত তাক প্ৰেজেন্ট কৰে বা প্লেস কৰে he ascertains and certifies the net proceeds of any tax or duty and his certificate is the final on that matter বুজি পাইছে যেতিয়া যিকোনো ট্যাক্স বা ডিউটিত কিবা নেট প্ৰচিড হয় তাৰ ওপৰত যদি কিবা এটা ক'বলৈ গ'লে অথৰাইজ চাৰ্টিফাইড বা অথৰাইজ এচাৰ্টেশ্যন বা অথৰাইজ চাৰ্টিফাইড কৰিবলগীয়া হয় তেতিয়া কেগে কৰে আৰু কেগৰ সেই চাৰ্টিফিকেশ্যন ফাইনেল হয় এনেকুৱাবিলাক মেটাৰত He acts as a guide, friend, philosopher of the Public Account Committee of the Parliament. He compiles and maintains the accounts of the state government. In 1976, he was relieved of his responsibilities with regard to the compilation and maintenance of the accounts of the central government due to separation of accounts from audit. He submit 3 audit reports to the president. আৰু হেগিতা হৈছে audit report on appropriation account, audit report on finance account, and audit report on public undertaking. So, কেগে তিনটাৰ audit report submit কৰে প্ৰেসিডেন্টৰ ওচৰত এটা appropriation accountৰ এটা finance account আৰু এটা public undertakings. Responsibilities. His duty is to uphold the Constitution of India and laws of Parliament in the field of financial administration. So, KEG is purely devoted towards the caretaker of financial administrative tasks of government of India. That's why he is known as public pars, right? So his duty is to uphold the constitutional framework or constitutional means establishment with respect to financial administration. Then the accountability of the executive, that is the council of minister to the parliament in the sphere of financial administration is secured through audit reports of the KEG. So executive যে accountability থাকিব লাগে যে ইমানখিনি আপোনাৰ পাৰ্লিয়ামেন্টৰ থ্ৰুদি পাছ হৈছে এইখিনি ইমানখিনি এমাউন্ট অডিট হৈছে নে নাই সেই accountability-টো কেনেকে এনচিয়ৰ হ'ব যদি এই খৰচবিলাকৰ অডিট হয় আৰু সেইটো কোনে কৰে কেকে কৰে so that's why we are calling that accountability of the executives and that is the council of minister in the parliament in the shape of a financial administration is secured to the audit reports of KEG. KEG is an agent of parliament and conducts an audit of expenditure on the behalf of the parliament. So KEG parliamentary as an agent hoy aru ei audit expenditure parliamentor behavior kore therefore he is responsible only to the parliament. Remember KEG is responsible only to the parliament. KEG has more freedom with regard to the audit of expenditure than with regard to the audit of receipts, stores, and stock. Whereas in relation to the expenditure, he decides the scope of the audit and frames his own audit codes and manual. He has to proceed with the approval of the executive government in relation to the rules for the conduct of the other audits. Now, KEGৰ যিটো freedom আছে হেতু expenditure অলপ বেছি পাৰ্টিত দেখা পোৱা যায় বা বেছিকৈ আছে বুলি ক'ব পাৰি তাৰ কম্পেৰিজনত বাকি যিবিলাক অডিট অফ ৰিচিপ্ট বা ষ্ট'ৰ্ছ বা ষ্টকৰ হয় সেইবিলাকক কয় কাৰণ যেতিয়া এক্সপেণ্ডিচাৰ কথা আহে কেক কেন ডিচাইড দ্য স্কোপ এণ্ড অলছ' হি কেন ফ্ৰেম his own codes and manuals with respect to such expenditure related audit but ইবিলাকৰ কাৰণে he has to take the approval of executive government. The KEG has to ascertain whether money shown in the account as having been disbursed was legally available for and applicable to the service of the purpose to which they have been applied or charged, and whether the expenditure conforms to the authority that governs it. Okay, then in addition to this legal and regulatory audit, the CAG can also conduct the propriety audit. That is, he can look into the wisdom, faithfulness, and economy of government's expenditure and comment on the wastefulness and extravagance of such expenditure. Now remember, এইবিলাকৰ উপৰিও, in addition to the legal and regulatory audit, CAG কি কৰিব পাৰে? CAG can conduct property audit. আৰু এই property audit মানে হৈছে তেওঁ যিমানবিলাক গভৰ্ণমেণ্ট এক্সপেণ্ডিচাৰ হৈছে সেইটো কি উইজডম আৰু ফেইথফুলনেছ, মানে সেইখিনি সঁচাকৈ ঠিকে থাকে আছে, সহজ অৰ্থত ক'বলৈ গ'লে সঁচাকৈ ঠিকে থাকে আছে আৰু নাই, বা কিবা ৱেষ্ট হৈছে বা কিবা এক্সট্ৰা ভেগেন্স হৈছে, সেনেকুৱা এক্সপেণ্ডিচাৰৰ ওপৰত তেওঁ কমেণ্টটো কৰিব পাৰে. So we have seen that in addition to the legal and regulatory audit, CAG can also conduct property audits. So he can look into the wisdom, faithful, and economy of government's expenditure and comment on the wastefulness and extravagance of such expenditure. However, unlike the legal and regulatory audit, which is obligatory on the part of CAG, the property audit is discretionary. Remember, this legal and regulatory audit is the main task of the CAG. So it is obligatory on the part of CAG. But this property audit is just a discretionary. Okay. Now, how we conclude, CAG helps the parliament or state legislature hold their respective governments accountable. কেগে আসলতে যেতিয়া অডিট হয়, যিকোনো এটা বস্তু অডিট হয়, ৰাইট, সেইটোৰ পৰা কি আহে? একাউণ্টেবিলিটি আহে. চ' কেগেওতো সেইটোৱে কৰিছে, আইদাৰ পাৰ্লিয়ামেণ্টৰ ক্ষেত্ৰত বা ষ্টেট লেজিslature ক্ষেত্ৰত গভৰ্ণমেণ্টক accountable কৰাইছে. He is the one of the bulwarks of the democratic system of government of India. আমি কি কৈছো? One of the bulwarks of the democratic system of government of India. It is for this reason B.R. Ambedkar said that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said that CAG shall be the most important officer under the Constitution of India, and his duties are far more important than the duties of even the judiciary. So obviously it is true. See, if our main means point of concern in economy is what? Obviously that our capacity of expenditure, or you can say the money power, or these things, right? So CAG is controlling this thing, not just controlling, CAG is actually bringing accountability of the government with his audit, right? So that's why it is said that CAG is the most important officer in our constitution, and his duties are far more important than the duties of even the judiciary. Here to kane B.R. Ambedkar tenake koise. I hope this is okay. So duta tinta point yet factual, like article 148 to 151. You have to remember. Then Comptroller and Auditor General's Act 1971, Regulation of Audits and Account 2007. And after that, the facts, whatever we have discussed information, they are now clear to you. Now let's come to the next question. Aru আজি next question to hoise corruption is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that can have far-reaching and detrimental impacts on the society. This question needs to be analyzed within 150 words, and this question is from GS paper 4. So corruption is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that can have far-reaching and detrimental impacts on the society. Let's discuss it. Now we know corruption is dishonest behavior of those in positions of power. So corruption আমি কেনেকে define কৰিছো ethicsৰ termsত? Dishonest behavior. Remember, corruption is a dishonest behavior, and it starts with the tendency of using public office for some personal benefit. Public using anything, any property of public office for some personal benefit. Moreover, it is unfortunate that corruption has, for many, become a matter of habit, and it is so deeply entrenched that corruption is now considered as a social norm. Hence, corruption implies the failure of ethics. So, lahe lahe ki hoise, corruption become a matter of, habit, become a matter of habit. Means corruption আমাৰ এটা মানে হেবিটৰ নিচিনা হৈ গৈছে। অ'কে, মই নকওঁ যে গোটেইখিনিয়ে ইয়াত ইনভলভ হয়, বাট যিসকলে কৰে তেওঁলোকৰ কাৰণে এইটো এটা হেবিট হৈছে। তাৰ আচলতে দিছ ইজ বোথ ৱে, মিনছ যোনে কৰাপশ্যন দিছে তেওঁৰ ৰেছপনচিবল, আৰু যোনে লৈছে তেওঁৰ ৰেছপনচিবল। চ' what happened that this is a kind of social norm now. So that's why it can be considered as a failure of ethics. যেতিয়া আমি কলো dishonest behavior, that means failure of ethics. Now, importance of fighting corruption. Corruption is an insidious plague. Remember how we referred it? Corruption is an insidious plague that has a wide range of corrosive effects on societies. It undermines rules of law, leads to violation of human rights, and allows organized crime to flourish. Corruption is not limited to collusive high-level scam. Petty corruption that affects the delivery of basic service and rights to people is also rampant, right? Corruption এনেকুৱা নহয় যে high-level scam হ'ব, right? High-level scam হোৱাটো এটা corruption বা সৰু সুৰা এটা যিটো মানে এনেকুৱা থাকে যে নিজৰ পাৰ্চনেল বেনিফিটৰ কাৰণে পাব্লিক পাৱাৰ বা পাব্লিক প্ৰপাৰ্টি ইউজ কৰে, তাৰ পৰা সহজ কাম এটা কৰিবৰ কাৰণে এক্সট্ৰা পইচা লোৱা, সেইবিলাকৰ পৰা আমি কৰাপশ্যনটো দেখিব লাগিব। Petty corruption is there, right? The effect that affects the basic delivery of basic services and right to people. That is also rampant. Now, corruption impacts societies in a multitude of ways. In the worst cases, it costs lives also. Short of this, it costs people of their freedom, health, or money. The cost of corruption can be divided into 4 main categories: political-wise, social-wise, economic-wise, and environmental-wise. So, corruption cost to kami 4টা dimensionot chaba paru: political, economic, social, environment. Political. On the political front, corruption is a major obstacle to democracy and the rule of law. In a democratic system, offices and institutions lose their legitimacy when they are misused for private advantage. This is harmful in established democracies, but even more so in newly emerging ones. It is extremely challenging to develop accountable political leadership in a corrupt climate. Remember, it is extremely challenging to develop accountable political leadership in a corrupt climate. So, যেতিয়া climate to বেয়া হয়, তেতিয়া তাৰ কাৰণে গোটেই পৰিৱেশটোৱে বেয়া হয়, ৰাইট? ঠিক সেইটোৱে কোৱা হৈছে, যদি ডেমক্ৰেটিক চিষ্টেমত কৰাপশ্যন আহে, যদি ইনষ্টিটিউচন হওক, অফিচ হওক, তাৰ যিখিনি পাৱাৰ বা তাৰ যিখিনি লেজিটিমেচি আছে, সেইখিনি মিছ ইউজ কৰা হয় নিজৰ প্ৰাইভেট এডভান্টেজ, তাতকৈ আৰু বেয়া একো হ'ব নোৱাৰে, ৰাইট? সেইটো কাৰণে কৈছে পলিটিকেল ক্ষেত্ৰত বা পলিটিকেল ফ্ৰণ্টত কৰাপশ্যনটো এটা মেজৰ অবষ্টেকল হয়, right? Major obstacle to the democracy and the rule of law. Now, economically, corruption depletes the national wealth. Corrupt politician invest scarce public resources in projects that will line their pockets rather than the benefits of the communities, and prioritize high-profile projects such as dams, power plants, pipelines, and refineries over less spectacular but more urgent infrastructure projects like schools, hospital, roads. Corruption also hinders the development of fair market structures and distorts the competition, which in turn deters the investment. So, economic ক্ষেত্ৰত national wealth to deplete কৰে corruption. কিছুমান corrupt politician নিজৰ বেনিফিটৰ কাৰণে নিজৰ পকেটছখিনি ফিল কৰিবৰ কাৰণে কি কৰে সেই প্ৰজেক্টবিলাক এলোকেট কৰে ডাঙৰ ডাঙৰ প্ৰজেক্ট য'ত নেকি লাষ্টত গৈ পেলাই কমিউনিটিৰ বেনিফিট হোৱাতকৈ সেই তেওঁলোকৰহে বেনিফিট হয়গৈ পাৰ্চনেল বেনিফিট হয় আৰু কিছুমান যেনেকুৱা প্ৰজেক্ট আমি কৰিব লাগে স্কুল বা হস্পিটেল বা ৰোড যিখিনি বহুতেই ইম্পৰ্টেণ্ট আৱাৰ হেল্থ ইনফ্ৰাষ্ট্ৰাকচাৰ education related infrastructure, then road infrastructure. These are very important. And you can see a huge level of corruption there, right? Then corruption corrodes the social fabric of society. It undermines people's trust in the political system, in its institution, and its leadership. A distrustful or apathetic public can then become yet another hurdle to challenging the corruption. This especially impacts the poor and marginalized ones who are most dependent on public provisioning of rations, pensions, health, and education. Jetia society kotha ahe, corruption corrodes the social fabric of the society. Okay. Karon যিসকল পোৰ বা মাৰ্জিনেলাইজ হয় তেওঁলোক বেছি চাফাৰ হয় তেওঁলোকৰ পুৰা ট্ৰাষ্টটো পলিটিকেল চিষ্টেমৰ পৰা আঁতৰি যায় তেওঁলোকৰ নিজৰ যিখিনি বেছিক প্ৰভিজন থাকে ৰেচন পেঞ্চন হেল্থ বা এডুকেশ্যনলৈকে সেই গোটেইবিলাকতে তেওঁলোকে নিজকে এটা কি বুলি কয় সেই তাৰ পৰা বহুত নিজকে আঁতৰাই দিবলৈ বাধ্য হয় কাৰণ তেওঁলোকে দেখে যে এই প্ৰতিটো ছেকশ্যনত আচলতে কৰাপশ্যন হে ইনভলভ হৈ আছে যিটো তেওঁলোকৰ কাৰণে ফ্ৰী আছিল সেইটো এতিয়া তেওঁলোকৰ কাৰণে এতিয়া এটা ডাঙৰ বাৰ্ডেন কৰি পেলাইছে যিটো যিমান এমাউণ্ট তেওঁলোকে পে কৰিব নোৱাৰে সিমান এমাউণ্ট পে কৰি সেই বস্তুটো পাইছে চ' একচুৱেলি এভৰিথিং the benefits related to this different dimension going into the favor of the private purses of those corrupt politicians and other authorities involved, right? So serious cases of several big corruptions have surfaced in the last 5 years, including banking frauds, Rafale deal, and popular sentiment that helped the incumbent government in 2014 general election was the resentment against corruption in public life. Then environmental degradation hoy. This is another consequence of corrupt system, the lack of the non-enforcement of environmental regulations and the legislation means that precious natural resources are carelessly exploited and entire ecological systems are ravaged. From mining to logging to carbon offsets, companies across the globe continue to pay bribes in return of unrestricted destruction. So দেখা পোৱা গৈছে যে মাইনিঙৰ পৰা লগিং বা কাৰ্বন অফছেট সবতে কোম্পানী বিলাকে যেন এইবিলাক কিনিয়ে পেলাইছে ব্ৰাইবছ দি পেলাই আৰু তাৰ পৰা যিমান ইচ্ছা সিমান এক্সেছ কৰিছে আনৰেষ্ট্ৰিক্টেড ডিষ্ট্ৰাকশ্যন কৰিছে চ' অভাৰঅল গোটেই এনভাইৰনমেণ্টটো এই তেওঁলোকে ধ্বংস কৰি পেলাইছে Now, what are the measures to curb corruptions? The solution to the problem of corruption has to be more systemic than any other issue of governance. Merely shrinking the economic role of the state by restoring to deregulation, liberalization, and privatization is not necessarily the solution to addressing the problem. Adopting effective and coordinated policies against corruption, developing a coherent anti-corruption policy that identifies causes of corruption, commits to practical and coordinated and effective measures to address these causes is a prerequisite for success. So, developing a coherent anti-corruption policy that identifies the causes of corruption and commits to practical, coordinated, and effective measures to address these causes. Cause বিলাক উলিয়াব লাগিব কিহৰ কাৰণে corruption হৈছে আৰু সেই cause বিলাকক practically আৰু এটা coordination wise effective measure আনিব পাৰিব লাগিব তেনেকুৱাকে এটা coherent anti-corruption policy বনাব লাগিব Then fair and transparent system of public procurement হ'ব লাগিব. Establishing a procurement system built on the principles of objectivity, transparency, and competition. It is very important, both saving the public money and to ensuring that policy and developmental objectives of the government are met. Then GEM, government e-marketplace. Government e-marketplace. This is a step in the right direction. With this, public finance management system also helps in tracking the real-time uses of GEM. Okay, এইটো এটা ভাল step হৈছে. It's a very good step, or you can say right step in the right direction. And with this, public finance management system also helps in tracking the real-time uses of funds. So এইখিনি data আমি দিব পাৰিম, GEMৰ বিষয়ে ক'ব পাৰিম, government e-marketplace. Then strengthening the transparency and public reporting. Transparency বঢ়াব লাগিব, and informed society with free access to information is a strong deterrent to corruption. Remember, an informed society with free access to information is a strong deterrent to corruption. Eta informed society label enukwa society no ji eku nezane, ji aware no hoy je keneke code utilize hoise. They have to know, they should be very much aware with different government scheme, how they can be utilized or how they are misutilized. So that is an informed society, and they should be provided with free access to the information. And in that way, they will act as a strong deterrent to corruption. This underlines the importance of transparency, public reporting, and access to information in preventing corruption. The right to information needs to be strengthened to make the public officials and governments more accountable to the citizens. Then citizens must be vigilant, right? Otherwise, to say it, the punishment suffered by the wise who refuse to take part in government is to suffer under the government of bad men. So citizen খিনি পুৰা একদম এক্টিভ থাকিব লাগিব, ভিজিলেন্ট হ'ব লাগিব, তেওঁলোকৰ লক্ষ্য এইবিলাকত থাকিব লাগিব যে ক'ত কৰাপশ্যন হৈছে, ৰাইট? citizen must be very much vigilant. সেইটোৱে কৈ গৈছে যে the punishment suffered by wise men who refuse to take part in government is to suffer under the government of a bad man, right? ঠিক আছে. Then the institutional monitoring and legislative reforms থাকিব লাগিব. Prevalent institutional arrangement have to be reviewed and changes made where it is vested with power are made accountable. Functioning made more transparent, subjected to social audit. Social audit থাকিব লাগিব with a view to minimize discretionary decision. Napoleon, who said law should be so succinct or so succinct that it can be carried in the pocket of a court, and it should be so simple that it can be understood by a pigeon. Amar dekhot constitution kisman enuka ase je provision sobe buji napaয় common people. So hetu karone ebilak all of easy, mane that should be understood by our common man, our common citizen of India, not just lawyers or the elite society, right? So hetu karone Napoleon eta quote koisil je law should be so sunken, or আমি উচ্চাৰণ কৰিব পাৰো, so succinct that it can be carried in the pocket of the court, and it should be so simple that it can be understood by a pigeon also. Okay, সেইটো ক্ষেত্ৰত আমাৰ ভাৰতৰ কনষ্টিটিউচনখন অকমান টাফ হৈ যায়. Then the second ARC recommended the Prevention of Corruption Act 1988. I think 1988 আহিছিলে Prevention of Corruption Act, that should be amended to ensure that sanctioning authorities are not summoned, and instead the documents can be obtained and produced before the courts by the appropriate authority. Then e-governments focus should be on in-government and systematic sense, because an honest system of governance will displace the dishonest person. Remember, an honest system of governance will displace the dishonest person. Other measures are there, like some strict laws and regulations to beat corruption. Then perverse system of incentives in the public lives that makes corruption a high return, low risk activity need to be addressed. এটো থাকিব লাগিব, এই বস্তুটোক এড্ৰেছ কৰিবই লাগিব। সোসাইটিত ইয়াৰ ওপৰত এটা বেলেগ ধৰণৰ এথিক ক্ৰিয়েট কৰিব লাগিব, ৰাইট? মানুহে যদি নিদিয়ে, মানুহে যদি কৰাপশ্যনটো, মানে আমি আমাৰ কামটো সহজ কৰিবলৈ কি কৰোঁ, কৰাপশ্যন ইজ ইউজ এজ এ কিজ, Greece জানো নহয়? So we should actually stop this. That will impact in a larger extent, and that should be required actually. In this context, public example has to be made out of people convicted on corruption charge. Then second, ARC guidelines to prevent corruption, vigilance and corruption, strengthening the proactive vigilance to eliminate corruption and harassment to honest civil servants, including wherever necessary, limiting executive discretion, addressing systematic deficiency manifesting in reluctance to punish the corrupt, identify procedures, rules, regulations, and factors which lead to corruption. Then relationship between political, executive, and permanent civil service, that should be also taken care of, because improvement in the institutional arrangements for smooth, efficient, and harmonious relationship between civil service and the political executive is needed. Then code of conduct for different organs of government, that includes political executives, civil servants. Code of conduct should be there. Then we can conclude like rivers do not drink their own water, or you can say rivers do not drink their waters themselves, nor do trees eat their fruit, nor do the clouds eat the grains raised by them, right? The wealth of the noble is used solely for the benefit of others, not for itself, right? Similarly, means corruption to কেতিয়া হয় যেতিয়া নিজৰ বেনিফিটৰ কাৰণে ইউজ কৰে, আচলতে সেইটো পাব্লিকৰ বেনিফিটৰ কাৰণে আছে, ৰাইট? সেইটো কাৰণে এইটো কোড বহুত ইম্পৰ্টেণ্ট। ৰিভাৰ্ছ ডু নট ড্ৰিংক দেয়াৰ own waters, trees do not eat their own fruits, or clouds do not eat their grains raised by them. The well of the noble should be used solely for the benefit of others. So corruptions need to be rooted out from very core of our nation, so that there is a justiciable distribution of resources in the country, leading to the inclusive growth and sabka vikas. With this, I am ending this session. Thank you very much.